So to install BBDash based on the code and the GitHub repository, we first find the GitHub repository, we copy the link to the GitHub repository, and if you don't already have Git on your computer, you need to install that. I've included a link to the instructions for that. And if you don't have Node.js on your computer and npm, you need to install those as well, and I've included a link for that. Next, we would open our terminal. For Node, I'm using version 14.21.3, and for npm, I'm using version 6.14.18, and I would recommend using similar versions to avoid errors. The first step is going to be to navigate to the folder where we'd like to install BBDash. So I'm going to change directories to users, my username, and then I keep my programming projects in this folder here. And then I'm going to do git clone, paste the link to the GitHub repository, and I want to call mine BB-2 because I already have an Electron BB- folder. So we're doing that. If we do an ls, we can see that we have a BB-2 folder here. So next, let's change directories to the folder. I've called mine BB-2, but if you called yours something different, use that name instead. Next, we'll do npm install. So this tends to throw errors for me related to the version of SQLite I'm using, but I've been able to resolve this issue just by doing an npm install SQLite 3 after this initial npm install. So that did throw an error, but by doing npm install SQLite 3, I'm able to get the application working. So to serve the application, we do npm run electron :serve. Takes a few seconds to start up. So in the GitHub version of the application, we can actually see the developer tools, which can help troubleshoot when we are editing the application, but I'm going to close that for now. And again, we can double click or drag this to make this application bigger. The first step we need to do is go to the settings tab, create database, and name our database. We can call it anything. And I'm going to save that in my username folder. And similar to the video from the installer, we can have issues the first time we use a database. So I'm going to just close the app but not quit. And then we can actually restart the application by clicking the electron icon. So we should make sure the database is active. And then we can add transfusion data by going to the database transfusion tab. And we're going to start with adding the location file that I've added to the GitHub repository as an example. We can see there's a check mark and the status is complete, so that worked. Drag the utilization file, there's a check mark, and that one is complete as well. And again, if this worked, we should be able to see these fake transfusions in the Tables tab of the application. To start viewing the data, we can go to the Graphs tab, and if we would like to start with the products, we can select all products and then graph. And there's no cryoprecipitate in the example data. There is one plasma transfusion. There's a little bit of an error with just showing one transfusion. There's a few platelets here, and then a few red blood cells as well. And if we go to providers, we can see our red blood cells. There's a few here, and then we can compare between providers. We also have an individual transfusion view. Just by clicking on this button, you can see the individual transfusions. And that is how you get started with BBDash from the GitHub code.